Maplewood, Virginia was the kind of town that looked safe from the outside. Oak-lined streets, waving neighbors, children riding bikes until the streetlights came on. But even the sunniest towns cast shadows. Sophie Allen thought she had found her forever in Mark Hayes. He was charming, polished, and the kind of man who could sell a dream with a smile. She was the local elementary school art teacher, paint under her fingernails and kindness in her eyes. Their story was Maplewood's favorite love tale, the 4th of July barbecue where they met, the strawberry pie she burned, but he ate with a grin, the way he had once looked at her like she was the only person in the world. They built a life in a white craftsman house on Cedar Street, wrapped in string lights that glowed like fireflies in summer. They hosted game nights, posted pictures from trips to Charleston and Aspen, and seemed, to everyone, perfect. But Sophie was beginning to learn that perfection was just a photograph. It started with little things. Mark began keeping his phone face down on the counter. Late-night text messages arrived, and he would step into the hallway to answer them. His early morning jogs turned into long stretches of lying in bed, scrolling on his phone with a half-smile he didn't explain. One night in March, he came home smelling faintly of perfume. Not her light citrus scent, but something sweeter, richer. Vanilla with a hint of smoke. She asked him about it, her tone light. He laughed, kissed her on the forehead, and said, "You're imagining things, Soph." The next day, while doing laundry, she found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for two at a bistro in Richmond. He had told her he was at a networking event. She stared at the slip of paper, her fingers tightening around it, but she didn't say a word. Sundays had always been their sacred time. Pancakes, coffee, lazy mornings. But that Sunday she met her best friend Clara at Harriet's Cafe instead. The air was thick with the smell of cinnamon rolls fresh from the oven, but Sophie barely tasted her coffee. Clara leaned across the table, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Soph, someone saw Mark in Richmond last week. With a woman. Tall, brunette, expensive clothes. They said they were holding hands." Sophie smiled like the words hadn't just sliced her open. She changed the subject, but inside, her heart was beating so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. That night, Mark came home with tulips, her favorite. He suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us to reconnect. She smiled back at him, but it felt like stretching a piece of fabric that was already tearing. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. She needed to be sure. The following Thursday, she followed him, not with a detective's skill, just quiet persistence. Her gray sedan stayed 2 cars behind as he left Maplewood, drove past rolling fields and into Richmond. He parked outside a boutique wine bar. Minutes later, a tall brunette in a silk blouse appeared. Her hair fell in perfect waves. She walked straight to Mark, and when he saw her, his whole face changed. He smiled, not the polite smile he wore for clients, but the smile that used to belong to Sophie. The woman laughed at something he said and touched his arm. Mark leaned closer, his body language too familiar, too intimate. Sophie gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She felt her chest tighten, not just with anger, but with something heavier. The crushing knowledge that this wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was real. She didn't remember much of the drive home, only that the house felt colder than she'd ever known it. Her half-finished watercolor sat on the dining table, the paint already dry. That night, Mark came home smelling of the same perfume. Sophie served dinner like nothing was wrong. He told stories, poured her wine, and looked at her as though everything between them was unchanged. She studied his face as he laughed, seeing not the man she loved, but a stranger wearing his skin. She knew in that moment that he wouldn't confess unless he was cornered, and she decided she would be the one to corner him, but only when she was ready. Because revenge, she thought, is sweetest when the other person never sees it coming. If this story gripped you, hit the like button right now, share it with someone who loves an intense drama twist, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if you were Sophie. Don't forget to subscribe. Episode 2 is coming, and it will change everything.